Merry Christmas. I'm Nicola Barrow from NovaStream Network.
And I'm Georja Malt, founder of With G Digital and lover of literature.
And welcome to a very special, a very Christmassy episode of The Book Was Better. It's a podcast where normally we'll choose a very famous novel, watch the film the novel was adapted into, and debate what was better, the book or the film. But in the spirit of Christmas, in the spirit of giving and being nice and loving thy neighbor and loving thy book
podcast
and not
co-host.
loving thy podcast co-host and not pitting them against each other.
Yeah.
We've decided for Christmas that we would read probably the quintessential Christmas story and one that has been adapted many a time into many variations of film and talk about our favorite adaptations of it. So, that's what we are doing. But before we get into that, thank you very much for tuning in on Christmas Day, no less. And thank you for your support throughout the year. If you do like the show and you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, do all those fun things. And then you Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, a lot of places, iHeartRadio. Merry Christmas. But Georja Malt, why don't you kick us off? Why don't you let us know what we read for Christmas this year?
We read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens.
I mean, was there any other option?
It's just the iconic Christmas story,
This is
isn't
the
it?
first and last Christmas episode because what are we going to do next year?
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe the Grinch, but
that would be fun.
Wouldn't
actually
take us long to read the book. So
no, it might take me long. But yes, I think that'd be fun. But yes, A Christmas Carol this year by Charles Dickens.
Yes, and originally it was actually published as A Christmas Carol in prose, being a ghost story of Christmas.
Wow.
So for some reason they just shortened it to A Christmas Carol.
You know
Who
what?
could say?
Commercially, I don't think that's a bad idea. There's someone in the marketing department of whenever this book was written.
1843 it was
The
published.
1843 PR company was like, let's tighten that title up a little bit, right?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And it so Charles Dickens, he published this in a time of England where Christmas was kind of coming into, I guess, the modern sense of it that we know it today. Like in 1940,
Commercial Christmas.
Yeah, in a way, like in 1940, the Christmas tree was introduced by Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, or they're known to bringing it to England. It was in Germany for longer than that, but that tradition, the tradition of like giving Christmas cards, and so it's sort of really
like
was
that season of giving sort of vibe,
yeah, like
right?
just the Christmassy vibes, the traditional Christmassy vibes we know of today. I feel like we're sort of really emerging in that era.
Interesting.
And it was published on the 19th of December, and by Christmas Eve, the first edition was completely sold out everywhere.
How good's that?
So people loved
Charles
it.
had a hit. That's literally
immediately.
That's like the definition of viral success in the 1800s,
And
right?
the funny thing is, it's not quite funny for Charles Dickens. He was actually quite poor at the time when he wrote this. So he rapid fire wrote it in 6 weeks. It took just 6 weeks to write it, which was crazy. And he was really inspired by the poverty he saw in London at the time. And which
is a big central theme to
So it really was like a reflection on it's like a Christmas, it's like a classic Christmas story filled with Christmas cheer, Christmas spirit, redemption arc, like all those feel good things, but it also was kind of a really accurate reflection of society at the time, which I love it when that happens.
That's funny because it's funny you bring up like the classic Christmas tale because like this to me seems like the foundational one, right? Like this is the one that has set up whether it's a true adaptation of A Christmas Carol or just uses those like bare bones of structure.
Yeah.
Every single Christmas story basically uses A Christmas Carol as its like foundation, I guess. So.
Yeah, it's pretty iconic.
For good reason.
It was so popular. Something sadly around it though, it actually did get like illegally republished by someone else. So Charles Dickens lost a lot of the original money in lawyer fees trying to fight these people.
All that. That's like literally, that's piracy. That's 1800s piracy. That's great.
Literally.
You wouldn't download Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, right? You wouldn't steal a car.
So yeah,
that's a good throwback.
So pretty crazy stories behind the actual publishing. And the first movie adaptation of this, I think, was like in 1930 or something.
There's plenty of them.
There's like radio things, I'm guessing.
There was absolutely radio adaptations, and I was so focused on my adaptation that I didn't actually look up.
Well, your pick was pretty iconic.
Because mine's I'm not going to toot my own horn, but it is the best one.
Okay. I was like, mine's not the best one. Mine's Rhiannon and I's favorite, but it's,
one. No.
that's definitely not a universally agreed upon decision.
I get that. Even just looking at the performances and adaptations, it looks like a lot of plays was the big one, where plays throughout all of the... it was in the Surrey Theatre by 1844, just weeks after its publication.
Oh my goodness.
How crazy is that?
They were like, this is a hit.
Musical adaptations were huge as well, but I can't...
I just feel like musical things are just very Christmassy. Like,
which is funny because it's not... There's no songs in the book, right? But it seems like a lot of the Christmas Carol adaptations or Christmas Carol adaptations are musically based. Both of ours are.
Yeah, true. Which I didn't actually had forgotten that. I'm going to give yours away.
Oh, no. I feel like we said them on the last episode.
Oh, we did.
Okay.
So the Muppet Christmas Carol, I actually had kind of forgotten how musical it was. And then when I was rewatching it, I was like, this actually has quite a lot of songs.
A lot of songs and a lot of really funny ones, despite what critics in 1992 said.
Oh, damn them.
Damn them critics. They weren't fun 30 years ago. Not like us cool critics these days. But yeah, it's like literally heaps. And even up until most recently last year, Spirited with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds is another adaptation of A Christmas Carol. A very modern spin put on it, but another adaptation.
The Ghosts of Girlfriends Past with Matthew McConaughey. That's another sort of modern one.
Yeah, it's like a romantic one, like putting the rom-com spin on it as well. So this, I mean, it's a tale, literally a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
And one of those withstood the test of time too. And rightfully so, because... Was this the first time you'd read the book?
Yeah, I hadn't read
Same here, obviously.
And the thing with Charles Dickens that always surprises me is I go into his works thinking that they're going to be really convoluted because they're Old English, but I feel like he was quite good at writing for the masses. Like, they're not as difficult to interpret as I
agree,
imagine. It was kind of like Little Women, like...
Totally.
I thought that'd be harder to read.
I agree, because when it came to something like Agatha Christie, right, in last episode... That when we did Murder on the Orient Express, like that to me still felt like it had that twinge of like early 1900s. Even though this has some of the dialect of the 1800s, it still felt very, what's the word? It's like accessible, right? It felt like a very accessible story, whereas Agatha Christie's definitely had like a bit more of a, while still easy to read, like a bit more of a pretension to it as well. Like it was a very sort of, this is how good of a writer I am. And she was great. Don't get me wrong. That's not a dig at Agatha Christie. But this was, I would say, an easy read, an accessible read, a nice read, and that's a lot to do with not just the story, but the structure and how. I thought
it was so charming.
It's super charming.
I love how he sort of like brings the audience in as if you and him are connected. Like he sort of speaks to you in some random points, and I just think it's like really charming. And
it was very fun.
I enjoyed it.
It was very fun, and I definitely got the idea. And this is probably because I'm assuming you as well, have seen a lot of adaptations of The Christmas Carol. Yeah. I think I found myself being able to distinguish each character felt very unique in the way they were written as well. Ebenezer Scrooge has a very distinct dialect. Then it comes to the ghosts themselves or even things like Rob Cratchit and Tiny Tim and things like that. Like everyone felt like such unique characters. And I think that is just...
And his nephew.
The nephew and good old Fred. And it just struck me as like someone who, even though it's quite a simple story, everyone feels like at least a real person in this story as well. But there's also, I think, the reflection of the time in London is pretty well felt as well, because there are some really dark moments and some dark themes and conversations in this about how poor people do die and what Ebenezer Scrooge initially wants to happen to these people.
Like just send them to the poorhouse.
Send them to poorhouses, send them to union camps, send them to prison. He doesn't care. It's like, they're poor. Who gives a shit? And if
they're going to die, just hurry up and die.
Pretty much. And then when he's confronted with that in the Ghost of Christmas Present and young Tiny Tim is sick and he's like, is Tim going to die? And he's like, well, yeah, like you said, reduces the population.
So I love when the Ghost of Christmas Present puts that line back in his face. And it's like you said, reduce the surplus population. And Scrooge is like, oh.
Not Tiny Tim, though. It's like, well, no, Tiny Tim's part of the population. And
he's like, okay, maybe that was a bit unkind.
Definitely dealt with in the book in a lot more serious tone. Definitely dealt with in in Scrooge with a bit more of a serious tone. Not so much in A Muppet Christmas Carol.
No, definitely.
There's still some nice emotional moments in A Christmas Carol, but that is definitely a lot more of a whimsical version. I would say like this is pretty accessible for like most, if you're like over 13, you'd be able to read this, right?
I would say
but even still, there's some dark things going on. So, but first time reading, you enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's that's a win for both of us because I thought it was, and it's an easy read. It's like 110 pages.
Yeah, short.
My copy had pictures in it.
Oh, that's good for you.
So I found it was great for me. I was
I
was like, that's what that means. So I loved it. But then we obviously picked our favorite film adaptations. And would you like to go? Well, I'm assuming you can go first because your film came out first. 1970 with Scrooge.
All right.
Yours and Rhiannon's favorite adaptation from what I've been told.
It's like the worst one though.
I'll say this as well. Rhiannon was so excited when we picked this because obviously it meant she got to watch Scrooge, which is her favorite adaptation of Christmas Carol. She watched it last weekend at her parents' house in anticipation to watch it again with me this morning. And had nothing but a smile on her face the whole way through. So, but this was my first time seeing Scrooge.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah, I've never seen it before.
What did you think of Albert Finney's performance?
I'll tell you what, I liked Albert Finney in it. I'll say that much.
It's like super over the top.
Super over the top.
It's just so 70s, the whole thing.
Super 70s. I'll say this as well about the whole thing. I love the feeling of these movies, these like grand scale films that are shot on studio sets. Like they build these giant, larger than life sets.
Yeah.
And the whole film is set in them. And like, I love that feeling. I love that idea of like a studio based movie.
Yeah.
And I definitely got that feeling in Scrooge. Like I had a lot of fun.
It just like feels really, it's actually not even that close to the book. So I don't want to say it feels the most traditional because it's actually not very similar to the books at all.
It expands lots on the book.
It's just like, and that's why I feel like in my list I have mostly criticisms, which is strange because I like picked it as my one I wanted to watch. But it's just like some of the things. I think it's just the general, like you said, the stage and the setting, and like there's a lot of elements to it that I really like. But then there's some.
But Albert
things,
Finney wasn't one of them.
No, he was.
Okay,
I actually like his own.
No, I do too. He won a Golden Globe for it. Like, so
but a lot of people didn't like his performance.
A lot of people didn't like the movie.
No, it's got really bad reviews. It's really bad.
Very poorly reviewed.
And I mean, I can see some of the biggest criticisms I have with it are that they changed the second Ghost of Christmas Present to be like a lady. Oh no, is that the Ghost of Christmas Past? She's the lady in the red dress.
That's the lady in the red dress is the first one, Ghost of Christmas Past.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know, it was just a bit random.
The book was just another...
sort of like a ethereal, kinda.
Which is what A Muppet Christmas Carol does a bit more. It's a bit more
we'll talk about that later.
I bet we will. But if we're talking about adaptations, like faithful adaptations, that's probably a bit closer to...
the book, in a way. Because and also in the past, like obviously Scrooge has this girl that he was engaged to when he was younger, but she sort of says you've loved money more than you love me, and the engagement, and he's pretty sad about all that upon reflection. But in the Scrooge 70s one, it's like they show them meeting at Christmas at Fizzywigs party.
Great name, by the way, great name.
And then it sort of shows their courtship, but it's like the courtship's like through spring and summer.
Yes.
Which like for me is like kind of takes you out of like Christmas.
I know what you mean.
I don't think there's any other adaptations that show summer.
That show so much because...
like it's all snowy.
When Rhea and I were watching it, she said, is this part in the book? And I was like, it is, but it doesn't seem as... not necessarily as impactful because it is impactful, but it doesn't seem... as fleshed out. It seems like Scrooge, the movie, has taken a lot of liberty and adapted it a lot further.
Oh, definitely.
With a lot of stuff, but that specifically, and I know what you mean, like in the book, Scrooge is just basically taken back to see her again, and he almost remembers. He's just like, oh, this is what I lost. Like it's that feeling of like love at first sight. And then you kind of, as the reader, understand that it went further and stuff.
And then the scenes of them meeting and then the scenes of them breaking up are both at Christmas.
At Christmas,
but
exactly.
But like in the 70s one, obviously it shows a bit of their courtship outside of that, which I don't think, it's not so much that it's a bad thing. It's just like, I'm like, where's Christmas?
Where's Christmas?
I want Christmas in every second of every single part of this movie. Like,
we get it.
This
you
doesn't
love
look like
Christmas, Georja Malt. You love it.
Bring back Christmas.
Bring back more Christmas.
So
but even still, it was just one thing. But that's one thing of the whole film that is like we said, unnecessarily expanded.
Yeah.
As well. And obviously the songs do a lot of that. Like to pad out this runtime as well, which is just under 2 hours.
Long.
For context, Muppets Christmas Carol, 80 minutes long. All it needs to be. The book, 110 pages long. All it needs to be. Like in a good way, all it needs to be. Scrooge feels long.
Yeah.
It feels very drawn out.
It's also like that more old school movie. Like, you know, you got the kids stealing their hats and then they're doing a tap dance. Like, just in the olden days, people just had a very different source of entertainment.
They just loved watching people dance.
Like, it was more of a theatrical production, I guess.
No, that's fair. I get that. Yeah.
And I kind of liked the song, I Like Life. Life likes me.
Yeah.
That was really fun.
I loved also the when he goes with the ghost of Christmas yet to come, or the future ghost, I guess, which is death. And I can't remember the name of the song, but Ebenezer Scrooge has passed away, and he doesn't realize that he's watching people celebrate his death yet.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're all talking about the great thing that Ebenezer Scrooge has done for them, and which is die.
Yeah.
And the song they sing, I found that pretty whimsical and fun too, because I think that was very tongue in cheek. Like I found that to be to take something that is death and make it quite funny. I thought was well done, and then the slow realization that it's him in the coffin. But apart from that, there was not a lot of songs that I
don't really remember them. It was just sort of they were on.
And I'll be saying the same for A Muppet Christmas Carol. Like not all the songs are great, but
I something else with this movie that I thought I couldn't stop laughing was like the way that Marley, like his dead partner who comes as a ghost.
Yes.
She like kind of does that weird shuffle walk. Did you notice that?
So
he's sort of like it's sashaying.
It's a weird,
like a sashaying.
A chains down sachet. Now that is Alec Guinness.
Oh, okay. I don't think do I know him?
You will know who he's played. So Alec Guinness, famous for 2 major films. Lawrence of Arabia was one of them.
Okay. Yeah.
He also plays Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original Star Wars.
Ah.
That's Ben Kenobi. So I've had an affinity for Alec Guinness my whole life as a Star Wars fan. And I was watching this, which came out 7 years before Star Wars, and I was watching the performance and I went, is Alec Guinness drunk? I genuinely, there was just things in his performance where I was like, do you know what set you're on right now? Because there'll be times where he kind of just
like it was
just blankly looks and I was like, what's going on?
It was really weird. It was really, the whole thing was so
part
weird.
Of the performance is anytime a door closes, he'll just leave his hand out and wave it
Goodbye, Scrooge.
It was the weirdest.
It was so uncomfortable to watch. Like, it was really disturbing.
And I never want to knock a film, especially one that was made over 50 years ago for its effects, but just painting him this pastel blue, fucking, I don't know what color that was. Putting him in a shitload of like jumpers to make him look bigger with these like fake polystyrene chains.
I know.
And then just shining a massive bright light on him. I did find it quite funny.
It was so 70s. Like it was it was bad. It was
very
bad.
70s.
I think that I would have to say my favorite part of this movie though, which is Rhiannon and I's just like
the go-to moment for you
is when he grabbed at the end when he's had his like, you know, Christmas awakening, I suppose.
Christmas awakening.
And he grabs that boy and he's like, you boy, the prize turkey in the window.
You're a fine fellow.
Yeah, fellow, is that fine prize winning turkey?
All the boys said is hello. And he's like, oh, you fine little fellow,
you great little boy.
Oh, God.
A wonderful little boy. Get me the biggest prize goose in the window. And I would put money on it that scene in Hot Rod with Andy Samberg where Scrooge is in the bus is from Albert Finney's performance because it's just like so ridiculous and over the top. And Rhiannon and I feel like there's a lot of girls who, you know, quote things to each other
totally.
or whatever.
You have your secondhand language,
Probably not a lot of girls who look at each other and go, you there, boy, the biggest turkey in the window. But Rhiannon and I do. The prize winning turkey.
And that's what makes you guys special and different from everyone else. I was
special and different.
I was just thinking we didn't break down like the basic synopsis of this film.
Surely everyone's seen it.
If you don't know, basically Ebenezer Scrooge, he is a businessman who's very mean, hates Christmas, hates poor people, never wants people to, he doesn't
So
want to give away
tight
his
with
money.
money.
Super tight with his money. His business partner died 7 years ago on Christmas Eve. He has one surviving family member, which is his nephew, who has a lovely family and a dying boy called Tiny Tim, who has one crutch.
That's not right, mate, at all.
Oh, no, Cratchit has the son. Hey, Cratchit has the son. Sorry. He has a worker called Rob Cratchit who has a beautiful family with Tiny Tim. Too many characters for old Nicky Boy to remember. Anyway, it's Christmas Eve. Do you know what's crazy about this? You're going to love this. I read the entire book last night.
Yeah.
All 110 pages.
Did ya?
And then I watched both movies literally within the last 12 hours.
That is so
and I
funny.
still fucked up that the Rob Cratchit is the one with Tiny Tim. Irregardless, he hates a lot of people.
Yeah.
And he's visited by the ghost of Marley, his old business partner, who's like, hey, if you keep this shit up, you're going to look like me, Alec Guinness, drunk in chains.
Like he's damned in hell.
He's damned in hell.
Because he's such a bad person.
Which we'll circle back around that for Scrooge as well.
Oh, true.
And so he's told he's going to be visited by 3 ghosts, Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas yet to come. And they show him things that, you know, he did love in his past and when he was a good person, the people who were good to him, but how money changed him. Present is pretty much what's going to happen that night. That's what's happening Christmas night, how people are less well off than him, but still have this jovial, cheerful spirit about them.
Especially, and he's particularly touched by his employee, Bob Cratchit's young son, Tiny Tim, who is very unwell, and Scrooge feels really like it's the first time he's felt really like empathy in a long time.
For a long time.
And they're so smart about it, the ghosts. Like the first one really softens his heart with nostalgia, and then they just bring him right into dying
and
child.
And they just go, look what's happening, dying kids. Yeah. And then they go, and you're going to die. And everyone's going to be super happy that you're dead.
Yeah, they play it real smart, the ghosts.
And then obviously he changes his ways and everyone has a happy Christmas. Basic rundown.
It's so good when he loves Christmas. Like
it's so
it just
fun
puts you in the Christmas
versions.
spirit. You're
in
like
all the versions. It's book, films. It's done so well.
Yeah.
So he is shown hell basically in Scrooge by
which does not
Marley.
happen in any of the other ones.
Doesn't
it's
happen.
Really weird.
But I kind of liked the imagery. Like it's a weird moment, and it's not one where I was like, this made me feel something, because when you've got 4 shirtless muscular men in gimp masks carrying chains around hell, I don't think Million Years of Punishment. I think someone's kinky BDSM dream, to be totally honest.
It's really
I was like,
bizarre.
that's heaven for someone, and it could be Scrooge, the awakening he didn't know he needed. But the shot of him in the grave before he twirls down the grave, before he goes, whoa, down the wacky 6 feet tube, he does land on like a coffin-shaped red light, and it's like his silhouette. And I was like, that's a cool shot. That's cool. The rest of the
it's
moment
really
has
strange.
nothing to do with it,
It's really
unless you're
odd.
into gimp masks. So if you want a gimp mask for Christmas, Scrooge is the movie for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting how that's the extensions of this story aren't necessarily good. But it all that full circle when it comes back, and he, even though he's psychopathically telling a boy to buy a turkey on Christmas, I do like that whole.
Will I watch
arc,
it
right?
next year? Yes,
Probably.
I will.
Right?
So
Do you know what one of my favorite things is? And it's made fun of in A Muppet Christmas Carol. It's said with sincerity in this, and I laughed when I read it. Is that when Scrooge first sees Marley, the ghost, he's sort of like mildly haunted by him. Bells are ringing and things like that, and he's like, "Oh, there's something here, but I don't believe it." But then he sees Marley, and Marley's like, "I'm a ghost," and he's like, "No, I'm hallucinating because of indigestion. Like I've eaten some bad beef or a crumb of cheese that's stuck in." I love that in the 1800s, people were like, indigestion causes you to hallucinate. That is the science we were working with almost 200 years ago. When I get indigestion now, I just get sad. I don't hallucinate, but like it's you just don't eat that next time. But I'm glad the indigestion led to him changing his ways. So, but Scrooge is whack. Like it's
it's whack.
But I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed watching it. It's definitely not going to be like my favorite Christmas film of all time, but aside from being really long, some of the songs being okay, and there's some weird adaptations, like I think it still captures a lot of the feeling of the story.
It captures
right?
a lot of the feeling, and then also I think some of the other ones could be like really serious. So it's like
This is a good mix of
this isn't
both.
meant to be funny,
No.
but it is. So it's like a bit more lighthearted.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those ones where you can tell there was a lot of sincerity. It was made with a lot of sincerity, that's for sure. So, but it was filmed at the famed Shepperton Studios in London, England.
In London, yeah.
Which is also where A Muppet Christmas Carol was shot.
Really?
So funny that they didn't recycle the sets because
I was going to say
you got to build a whole new set when you're mixing the world of humans
and Muppets.
But
so going on to the Muppets.
Going on to the Muppets. So look, it came out in 1992. This was actually one of the first Muppet productions post the death of Jim Henson, who created the Muppets and created the Jim Henson Creature Company. He passed away in 1990. And I believe it was his son, Brian, was then asked if he wanted to make a Muppet Christmas Carol, if they wanted to adapt it for Muppets. And they did. And this is I watch this almost every year for Christmas, but Rhiannon hadn't seen it until last year. I think.
I think I remember
I feel like as well,
that,
you don't think you would take it seriously, right? Like it's the Muppets, but I've
always loved the Muppets.
I love the Muppets.
Like even as a kid, my parents got us the original show, so I used to
like
watch it as a kid.
1970s
And like
Muppets show, right?
Yeah, I watched that, and then
I love it.
I just love the humor. It's so like random.
It's
and
so
funny.
irreverent. Like that's the best part.
A lot of things I don't really think kids would 100% get. But
kids love the puppets being silly.
Yeah.
I think big kids love what they're doing and saying.
Yeah.
The toxic relationship of Kermit and Miss Piggy is one of the funniest things in the world. And Miss Piggy is an absolute highlight in Muppet Christmas Carol. I love the Muppets too. I grew up watching them. And then when they kind of revamped it and rebooted it with the Jason Segel film, love that movie.
Kyle loves that.
That movie's great.
Yeah,
that movie is
really good.
Is another 5 out of 5 movie. Like it is perfect. So because again, it just captures the spirit of the Muppets.
Yeah.
What A Muppet Christmas Carol does is it captures the spirit of the book, but just adds the Muppets' irreverent humor to it.
Yeah.
We get Gonzo playing Charles Dickens as the narrator of the film.
And it's so like meta because like he's saying, I'm Charles Dickens, I wrote this. And then you have Rizzo the Rat, who's the only character who plays himself. And he's like, you're not Charles Dickens.
He's like, no, but for this it works. And they're like, okay. But you're right. Rizzo the Rat is the only Muppet who's playing themselves.
Yeah.
Except there is one point where Sam the Eagle is playing the headmaster of Ebenezer Scrooge's school. And Gonzo goes up to like, no, Sam, you're red.
That's right. Yeah.
But like even in the credits, it's like Kermit the Frog playing Bob Cratchit, Miss Piggy playing Mrs. Cratchit. Like it's really funny.
It's so funny.
But the standout of more quick info on the book. It didn't perform well at the box office, unfortunately.
I'm kind of not surprised because I just felt like kids wouldn't have. I feel like they would have been bored.
I feel like they would have, but it was also going up against Home Alone 2, one of the biggest sequels of all time, and Aladdin.
Oh.
So Disney were fighting themselves with Muppet Christmas Carol and Aladdin at the same time.
That's not good.
But it has been found by people over time. It's gained a bit more of a cult following. And to me, this is my Christmas Carol, right? I love the Muppets Christmas Carol. Mainly because as irreverent, as funny, as meta, as stupid as it is, Michael Caine playing Ebenezer Scrooge, to me, I 100% mean this when I say this, is an Oscar-worthy performance.
Do you know what I read?
It is brilliant.
I don't know if this is true, but I read that he was kind of, I think they originally thought he was going to play it lighter, but he was like
I've got the quote.
Dead set on playing it serious.
So he said, I'm going to play this movie like I'm working with the Royal Shakespeare Company. I will never wink. I will never do anything Muppety. I'm going to play Scrooge as if it is an utterly dramatic role and there are no puppets around me.
And it works. It makes it so good because the contrast of the Muppets and him is just so funny because he's dead serious.
He's dead serious and he's fantastic
and his reactions.
Oh man. But for me as well, but then that works at the end when it gets emotional and when he starts really being like, I want to change my ways. It's really sincere.
Yeah, you feel it.
But the juxtaposition of these crazy Muppets is
Do you know what my fate? I laughed out loud so hard when they're in Scrooge's office and he's got like the little bookkeeper rats, and then they're going, oh, we're really cold. Can we put more coal in the fire? And he's like, how about you have no job? Like, you know, how would you keep warm them? And then they're all in these island outfits being like, oh, we're so warm.
Rhiannon, this is why you guys are best friends. Rhiannon
so funny.
pissed herself laughing at the exact same moment this morning.
Hilarious.
It's so, but again, it's just that random Muppets humor, and it works really well. Again, it's the relationship between Kermit and Miss Piggy.
Yeah.
And when Miss Piggy's cooking and before Bob comes home and her two pig daughters come up and they're fighting and they're just like Miss Piggy. And it's like Belinda and Bonita, I think it is. And he's like, I'm Belinda, I'm Bonita. And she's like getting angry about not being able to recognize who her children are. And then when she confronts Scrooge later in the film.
Yeah, she's just staunching him.
Staunching him, Miss Piggy style. And I love Sam the Eagle when he's like, you're gonna go into business, boy. He's like, business. He's like, business. It's the American way. And then Gonzo, as Charles Dickens comes in, goes, and he's like, it's the British way. Like it's so random and it's really funny, but I think it's made with so much heart, which a lot of the Muppets content is like, and it's just a perfect story for it. Again, like I love the grandiose sets of this film. The technical stuff behind the scenes of it's great because obviously Michael Caine and other human performers are walking around all these Muppets who have to be puppeted by people. And so they had to have these very narrow walkways that Michael Caine had to stick to. Otherwise, he would tread on people who were doing all the
puppets.
It's crazy how they pulled this off. Like it looks
so seamless.
It looks so seamless. Amazing. But Michael Caine's performance is the reason a lot of this works for me. So
there's one thing that definitely doesn't work for me.
Tell me what it is. Break my heart.
Surely you can guess.
There could be a lot
Mate,
of things.
it's the first ghost.
The ghost. Okay, the ethereal, whatever you call it.
Is that
the
thing?
The little floaty girl.
That's traumatizing. It looks so weird. Did you not think it looked messed up?
No,
oh, mate.
It's not Muppety, that's for sure. It's a puppet.
It's not
But it's not
anything.
Muppety.
It's not.
But it's more...
It's so freaky.
Because he describes... So I believe, if I recall correctly... Scrooge describes the first ghost as a spectre, right? He sees it more as a spectre. Like that to me is what I would assume a Muppet spectre would look like.
It's just its face though.
It's just,
I wish they'd made it a Muppet.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Like with the other two.
Make, I don't know which Muppet, but just make it a Muppet. Like, put that Muppet who plays the guitar in Animal's band.
Oh, just the random band member.
Or just
cameo from Animal as well.
But you know what I mean? Like I just don't understand why every other the second ghost, the feast ghost is a Muppet. Awesome. I just don't understand why they were like, let's make this one a random special effects floaty child with a weird haunting face.
Haunting voice as well. Like
I didn't like any of it.
Come with me. I will show you.
It was like Mr. Burns when he takes
that
injection or whatever it is, and he gets the alien.
Yeah,
that's what it reminds me of. I don't like
it. It's weird. I'll admit it's weird, but for me, especially after reading the book, I'm like, it's a spectre. At least it's not like it's not just like a lady in a red dress. I guess. But the thing that I find funny, and this is just me finding it funny, is that the Ghost of Christmas Present in both films are these giants who are dressed very florally as well. And I couldn't help but keep thinking about the movie Midsummer, which I know you haven't seen.
No, I haven't seen that.
But if you have seen Midsummer, like imagine a Midsummer, A Christmas Carol. That's kind of what you get with these guys here. So I just couldn't get it out of my head. And it's just me mixing, again, my psychopathic films with
I love the middle ghost. He's the one.
He's so nice.
He's the one who calls him out about decrease the surplus population.
Yeah, he's a friendly giant, right? And he's just like calling Scrooge out and all of his shit, basically.
Love it.
Take no prisoners, Ghost of Christmas Present. And then obviously Death rocks up in both films as the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. And that's pretty confronting as well. It's
a spooky part. Again, I was a bit spooked as a kid.
Spooky part, but the Muppets Christmas Carol calls it out. Because when Gonzo and Rizzo are there and they're like, this is spooky. Yeah, too spooky for us. We'll see you at the finale.
I know. I love that. It was so funny.
But it's funny, but I think it was the perfect choice because where the emotion hits the hardest, obviously, is because when Scrooge is like, oh, they hate me. Like, they're literally celebrating my death. I feel like Muppet interjection probably would have ruined the flow. Yeah, taken away from a little bit. Yeah. So I think it's like an intentionally good decision to do that. And then, Michael Caine is far less confronting to the children at the end when he's like, buy a turkey, boy.
Yeah, he's definitely not as handsy.
He just drops a sack of money down to a little child down on the ground. But I want to compare the Tiny Tims in both films as well.
Yeah, well,
Were you more heartbroken by the Muppet Tiny Tim? Because I was.
I mean, he was just so cute.
So cute, right?
He was so cute.
I shouldn't have laughed, but I was laughing when he gets home in the Muppets one and he starts like,
Yeah.
and he's like, oh, he needs to sit down on his chair over there and rest. And I was like, I didn't feel any compassion to the other Scrooge kid. I'm sorry, but as soon as the Muppet starts wheezing and coughing,
the one in the 70s one didn't seem that sick to me.
No, he didn't. He was
they
a
could
kid
have played
actor in
that
the
up
70s.
a bit.
They could have. And you know what? The coughing sold me. The coughing of a little
Kermit,
frog,
the little Kermit puppet,
a mini Kermit, a Tiny Tim puppet.
You know what though? Poor Tiny Tim has one iconic line in this, and it's probably the most iconic line.
And it's
God bless us, everyone. And Michael Caine just goes, you know what? I'm going to say that.
I bet you that's exactly what happened on set too. He's like, Michael Caine's like, I've done far too much bloody work on this film, and I'm going to take my shot and say the most iconic line of the film. And then they're going to say like, well, you're Michael Caine. I can't say anything.
It's a miracle we got you on this.
The
in the
little
first place.
kid's like, God bless us. The Michael Caine like almost punches him out. He's like, God bless us, everyone. God bless me, Master Wayne.
Speaking of knocking over a Muppet, that part where he just yeets the Muppet out of the office, literally just throws him out.
Oh my God.
Funny.
Oh man, I like the Muppet Christmas Carol is just so funny, but I don't think it loses any of the heart of the book.
No, it doesn't.
The one thing both of these films don't do well is the songs.
I liked
the
end songs of both. I liked Thankful Heart, and I liked I Like Life, as I've mentioned.
I Like Life is fun. And not every song's bad, I should say. But none of them are that memorable, you know what I mean? Like, are you going around singing songs from the Christmas Carol adaptations?
Only now. I'm singing I Like Life, and I'm singing Thankful Heart, but I should say I'm trying to sing it because I don't know any of the lyrics.
The lyrics
so
to it, yeah.
And and a thankful heart.
And that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. Yeah. But it's just something that I just find funny that, considering there is many musical adaptations of this, that none of them seem to have really nailed the musical part of it.
I don't think the Muppets one needed music.
I don't think so either, but I think because music is a big part of the Muppets anyway. At least it's staying within brand of the Muppets themselves. But yeah, it's definitely not something
point. Actually, they do a lot of music. Yeah.
There's a lot of songs though.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of songs in it as well. And some of them are funny and I laughed in the moment, but I probably wouldn't be able to recall them. It's the same thing that's happened recently with the Wonka movie that's come out recently, is that it's the same thing. Like, I liked the songs in the moment. I couldn't tell you any of them now.
Yeah, right.
But say Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I'm like, you know all of them
they're
almost,
iconic,
right?
Yeah.
I feel the same about these songs, I guess, is what I'm saying. So
no, fair enough. I agree with you. None of them will be making my Christmas playlist, really.
No. None of them are going to be, You're not going to have carolers coming to your door and rocking out.
I like life. Life likes me.
Oh, the other song. I did end up finding out what it was. I wrote it down in Scrooge. It was the... I did write it down, I'm pretty sure. Well, maybe I didn't. No, I did. The Thank You Very Much song.
How does that go? I can't remember.
I don't remember. I just remember laughing and enjoying it. But I did enjoy that song. Speaking of Christmas Carol adaptations and songs, Spirited. Did you watch Spirited?
I did watch Spirited, yeah.
The Good Afternoon song in that film is hilarious because obviously they imply that good afternoon basically means go fuck yourself, basically.
Yeah.
So every time Albert Finney told people good afternoon, which is a lot in the film, a lot in the book too.
Yeah.
When he's talking to the two men coming to collect the charitable donations, I couldn't help but giggle. That song has completely altered how I see good afternoon said in these films now, which is...
It's so clever of them to pick that out. And
clever to pick that out and makes me wonder, was that the intention of Dickens? Was that kind of like the underlying tone of the good afternoon was go fuck yourself?
I feel like it was because he was just like this is the end of the conversation.
It is, yeah. I've already asked you to leave once. Yeah. It's done. Yeah. So... Did
you like Spirited?
I did. I really liked Spirited. Not a lot of people did.
For me, it just felt a bit long, and then I also just felt like Ryan Reynolds was he didn't really learn anything, did he? He was still
not until he spoiler, not until he dies.
But even when he died, he was sort of not really that great of great of a person in the end.
No, I mean,
he was kind of like
better. He used what he was good at on Earth for the afterlife. You know what I mean? Like the businessman-y sort of CEO style douchebag, I guess. Like works well now in the afterlife when he has to organize all these ghosts of certain Christmases. Time. I don't know. We are watching it again this Christmas. I've been told.
Yeah, okay.
By Rhiannon. I don't curate our Christmas. Being a movie guy, I don't curate our movie list over Christmas.
That's up to Rhiannon.
I have to give that up.
I was so close to picking a different adaptation, but I thought it would be too close to the Muppets, and that's Mickey's like Christmas Carol.
Oh, Mickey, the Mickey Mouse one.
Because I would say like as a kid that was mine.
You watched that the most? Yeah, okay.
My most watched Christmas movie probably ever, because I watched it so much as a kid, was Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. Which have you ever watched that? I have seen that. Which is very heartwarming.
It's very sweet.
It's very well done.
It's very sweet.
But yeah, I almost picked that, but I'll probably still watch that, I reckon.
No, I mean it's still a Christmas time watch at least, right? Yeah. And may pop up next year. Who knows? We might have to do a Christmas next year.
Maybe I haven't watched The Grinch in.
So the Jim Carrey one.
Yeah, see, he scared me. I thought he'd be under the bed.
Right.
I was like,
he's a creepy character. And we do have, there was an animated one that came out a few years ago with Benedict Cumberbatch. I actually just
watched this. Watched that, and I was like, he's less creepy, I guess.
Very much so less creepy. And a lot of that's the voice.
And the song is so good.
The song is great in that film. So maybe we'll do The Grinch next Christmas. Hey, there we go. Lock it away.
2024.
2024.
I know.
Well, I mean, speaking of 2024, we will be revealing what our first one of 2024 is soon, which is my pick for
I'm excited.
2024. Do you have anything else before we do that you would like to talk about in regards to A Christmas Carol?
No, I
film?
think that's pretty much it. Just if you haven't seen it, you got to get on it.
You got to get on it.
It's just part of Christmas.
And watch A Muppet Christmas Carol because it's great. It's funny as hell. It's great. It's one of the funniest movies. And it's so sweet and heartwarming and
it
great.
is good, yeah.
It's great. And it's
maybe don't bother about the musical one.
Scrooge.
It just depends what you're into.
Yeah, it depends what you're into. If you got 2 hours to spare and nothing to do, sure, give it a crack. But Georja Malt, before we crack into that, I don't know if our keen viewers on YouTube, and if you're not watching on YouTube, you wouldn't know just yet. There's a couple of presents sitting in front of us. It's a Christmas episode.
We're doing some gifts.
We're doing some Secret Santa Christmas gifts, and we've bought each other.
Not hard to guess who our Secret Santa is.
No, but I mean, if I had to lay down one big guess, I think Georja Malt might have got me a gift. But they're laying out in front of us. I think maybe we should we open them at the same, or should we do a?
Do you want to do? I don't know. Do you want to do ladies first?
We can do ladies first. So Georgia, yours is wrapped up there with a nice little bow on it. Now,
I feel like Rhiannon wrapped this. I don't think you had anything to do with this at all. I can
confirm nor deny. I'm left-handed, so wrapping is hard for me. So
Kyle wrapped one of my presents, and it looked like a spaceship somehow.
That's kind of how I go for it. So I really hope you like what you've got.
I'm going to do some ASMR in the mic.
Yeah.
Is that how you do ASMR?
Yeah, I think that's how you do ASMR. Now, I got
what
you
did
a
you
book.
get me?
I got you a book.
Okay, well, that's topical.
In line with the show, but I thought you'd really enjoy...
Behind the Horror, true stories that inspired horror movies.
So
I don't want to read this. This is the worst gift I've ever gotten. So not only do you know that I hate horror movies, you're going to tell me about the poor people in real life who actually went through them. You are so messed up. You are absolutely... so messed up.
I thought this whole year you've been talking about,
my God,
how much you love the fact that we haven't done any horror or true crime yet. And I was like, why don't we start opening the mind a little bit? So it's called Beyond the Horror, true stories behind our favorite horror films.
And just the back, there is nothing scarier than a true story. Thanks so much. I love it.
Gee, that's all right, mate. I hope you really enjoy it.
Oh my God. I hate that. Thanks so much.
Do you know what the worst part is I'm going to feel like an absolute dick when I open this.
No, mine's a joke too.
Good. I'm glad. Now look.
I also got you a book.
Oh, there we go. Well, we both know I need to read more, so we'll do a bit of...
Oh, that was a good one. That was It's like the most watched episode ever because of the ASMR.
Because of the two little scenes of ASMR that we've done here. All right. What is Georja Malt coming? It's a book called How to Read a Book. The classic guide to intelligent reading.
Well, I know you're always saying that you don't know how to read, so I just...
This is a fucking book about how to read.
I hope you find it instructional, and I hope it improves the quality of our content.
About this book, the New Yorker says, shows concretely how the serious work, I can't even read the fucking blurb.
It's going to take you a while.
Book shows concretely how the serious work of proper reading may be accomplished and how it may yield in a way of instruction and delight.
May it instruct and delight you your whole life through. Merry Christmas, mate.
Merry Christmas.
I'm giving you the gift of reading.
Merry Christmas.
How to read.
How nice of you. Oh my God. Well, on the next episode of The Book Was Better, they better turn this into a film in the next couple of years because we'll go
through that one.
This. Oh, God.
I feel like
that was great.
These are both presents that will not get used. But
you know what? I'll read it as a bit of a meme. Okay. And maybe Kyle will
Kyle, I'll read one story.
Do you know what one I want you to read? Because I did have a quick look.
What, the worst one?
No, it's not the worst one because it's at least one that's close to home. Wolf
God.
Creek, The Crimes of Ivan Milat.
Oh my
and
God.
The Murder of Peter Falcone.
Are you crazy? I'm not reading
There's some
that.
great ones in here, like how Scream was inspired by a true story, how the Conjuring movies were, Silence of the Lambs. These are all Jaws, The Exorcist, Psycho. These are all very famous films.
Maybe I'll read Jaws.
Jaws will be fun. The Jersey Shore shark attacks and the sinking of the USS Indianapolis and the life of Frank Mundus, who was probably eaten by a shark.
Poor Frank.
Poor Frank.
Poor
hey.
Frank. I'm sad already.
Oh, God. Okay, that went so much better than, I had a level I was like, it's going to be good. And, that was... Jesus Christ. Well, I can't wait over this small Christmas break that we're having to learn how to read, Georgia. Thank you. I appreciate it. But look, thank you for this year. Obviously, it's been a very fun. This has been a fun podcast to do with you. And I think it's going to be even better in 2024.
I think so,
I think we'll go strength to strength. You've given me the gift of reading, and I hope I've given you the gift of...
Absolute terror,
nightmares, and a restraining order probably. And this podcast is
it's already pending.
I'm just like you're waiting for it to get signed off. You're like, guys, there's actually no show next year. But look, Merry Christmas, everyone. Merry Christmas, Georgia.
Christmas.
Happy New Year to you all. And as we kind of close out this year, next year.
What's
for
our
our
first
January
read?
episode, 2024, first episode of The Book Was Better. Next year is Call Me By Your Name. I've been on a bit of a Timothée Chalamet kick lately after seeing Wonka and thinking about his career, and I was like, I haven't read the book.
Yeah, me neither.
I was quite profoundly moved by the film.
I loved the film.
So I'm excited to give it a crack. We'll get some tears ready to go for January. So Call Me By Your Name. So if you got some time over your Christmas break, give it a read, give it a watch, and come back around mid-Jan.
I'm keen.
For the next episode of The Book Was
good.
Better. You can find all our social stuff in the description below, but where will people find you?
Just head to Instagram, and I'm at withg.co.
And I'm at nicksflicksfix on Instagram, everywhere else on there. Thank you all for a great year. Merry Christmas to you all, and we'll see you in the next year.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.